This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Welcome to Kentucky's Voice. It's the Friday edition. Of course, you know what Friday means. Friday means it's open line Friday, so you can talk about anything you want. You can text anything you want.
In memory of Rush Limbaugh.
In memory of Rush Limbaugh, which, you know, I cut my teeth on. I remember listening to Rush when I was in college in the early 90s. Someone said, hey, he's on this little AM station. Before he was on HAS, right? So I started listening to him. And I switched my degree to political science because of Rush Limbaugh. So,
great.
so it's like, somebody could do this. I'm going to do this full time.
That was a great idea.
So I finally living my Rush Limbaugh dream here with this TV show. But anyway, Open Line Friday. So we have Debbie Robbins with us today, of course, and Bob Scott, the intrepid Bob Scott. And so we've got a lot of topics today. You know, there's a lot going on. We talked about Pride Month yesterday. There was a victory, so to speak, in that, with that issue this week here in Louisville. The Metro Council, and if you heard about this or not, there was a Metro Council member who wanted to make Louisville a safe haven for transgenders. And so he wanted to create this ordinance that we would somehow become this, sanctuary city for transgenders. So it means all these things illegally with the state or city hiring and it's just all this silly stuff. And so it got voted down, and actually a lot of Democrats voted against it as well. And it's quite interesting.
Right.
And really a lot of the Democrats voted against it because they didn't feel like it went far enough. Right. And then a lot of the more reasonable, Metro Council folks said, well, aren't there laws on the books in the state of Kentucky now that protect religious discrimination? So if we pass this, we're going to be up. We're going to have another $800,000 lawsuit like we did with the wedding photographer this past few months, because somebody's going to come along and say, well, I didn't want to hire this transgender because it's against my religious convictions, and they would have won, according to state law. And so the city would have paid out another $1 million. So they're getting wise to this now. It's like, you can't just put these bills out that force coercion of people's thoughts and religious life and personal convictions and not pay a price for that. So hopefully the city's learning, and this is it's just
I know. How about just the good old fashioned love your neighbor as you love yourself?
Exactly.
We don't have to have laws on having, decency and respect for one another. And I'm sorry, I have great compassion for people that are in that lifestyle, but you cannot legislate morality, especially in that way. It's just not right. It's very difficult to quote legislate morality, but it's just common sense, just good biblical principles what this country was built on, which so many people want to reject these days. But I'm sorry, it's still basic principles that we live by that have just kept us to be decent people for thousands of years. And that's how I feel about that. I'm
exactly
good for them. Right. And Democrats, I'm sorry it didn't go far enough for you, but thank you for letting it go down, because that was a wise decision.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, it's why, of course, the ACLU and United Way and the Fairness Campaign pulled their support. Some believe the proposed ordinance did not go far enough. Other groups are worried it would conflict with laws being passed by the state legislature that protects individuals' religious rights. So, we got a minute left, Bob. What are your thoughts?
No,
on
that's a perfect example. I like to take my shots at leadership in Frankfort, but bravo. This was a good call on their part. It was a sane call. I mean, come on. A man can't be a woman can't be a man. I don't care what anybody says. That's just basic genetics and basic science. So let's follow the science. And it's bravo to the Louisville City Council for killing that very bad proposal that was coming before them.
Yeah, and there's something un-American about using federal or state power to coerce you to go along with somebody's mental illness, because this is mental illness at the end of the day. You're not a woman, you're a man. And so it's, I'm going to use the police to force you to, go along with my mental illness. So,
we want you to text us today at 502-571-0970. What's on your mind? We've got a lot on ours.
We'll be right back. We're going to talk data centers, coal. Trump just signed a new coal thing for Kentucky, so this is exciting. We'll be right back. Fridays, Kentucky's Voice.
speculate on that one.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We're going to talk energy, data centers, coal, this segment, and also to get your thoughts, too. So we want to hear your thoughts. It's Friday. We talked about the Pride Month, this a little bit, the first segment. We're going to talk about data centers now, and we have a lot of other topics, too. But 571-0970, 502-571-0970. Mr. Producer, if you can go to my laptop here. Lexington Herald Leader has an article out today. Reports put pressure on Kentucky lawmakers to protect ratepayers amid data center boom. And so basically the story is basically saying that, hey, we need to pay attention to how when these data centers go into areas, specifically rural areas, that your data is going to shoot up, or your electric bills are going to shoot up. And Mr. Producer, I'm going to play this clip from President Trump yesterday. That actually not from yesterday. Actually, this is from 2016. It kind of relates to this. See if we can get this audio right.
Has decimated the coal industry, decimated it. And we're going to bring the coal industry back, folks. We're going to bring it back. Thank you. It's ridiculous. We're sending our coal over to China, and they're using our coal, but we can't use it. They're not cleaning our coal. They're putting it out any way they want. We are going to go back. We're going to use various other forms of energy. What he's projecting, forget it. Look, the coal industry, and I know it's a big industry here, the coal industry is going to make a very big comeback, okay?
Okay. Now, take that thought. That's 10 years ago, 2016. He's in Louisville. He's stumping, and he's talking about he's going to bring back the coal industry. So yesterday, President Trump signs an executive order. And
President Donald Trump announced a massive $700 million investment into the country's coal industry. This massive influx of federal funding is going toward keeping American coal facilities operational and the construction of two entirely new plants, one in Alaska, the other in West Virginia. According to the president, the two new plants will be the first built in the U.S. since 2013. In his second term, the president has prioritized coal as an energy resource. Using powers granted to him by the 1950 Defense Production Act, the president is utilizing emergency funds to stay competitive with foreign markets.
You have so many different alternatives. They talk about some, but there's no real alternative. China, by the way, last year built 52 coal plants. If you look at China, if you look at so many of the successful countries, they're using coal. If you look at some of the real great failures countries, they're using wind. Just keeps blowing, and puts you right out of business.
They're going to stop it there. So they're building some new coal plants. And what's interesting to see the difference in his age from 2016 and now. That's just kind of striking. Age gets, time marches on for all of us.
I cannot imagine the stress that any president lives under, but especially this one. God bless him. He's earned his crown of splendor, they call it in the Bible, that gray hair.
So let me thread the needle between all those stories. So the data centers, obviously, that's a big issue. Obviously, power is a big issue. Our rates going up. Well, Trump, signing this or announcing this investment into the coal industry, that's going to help Kentucky, obviously, because Kentucky coal is the best coal out there. And then, and also they're going to build some new power plants in West Virginia and different areas. So, what do you think, guys? Pretty interesting things going on here that affects our state. Nationally.
I think it's exciting. Because we know energy in Kentucky, and we know that it needs to be safe and clean. I so admire. All I can think about is, it's crazy to say, but Loretta Lynn and her daddy, coal miner's daughter, 100 years ago. And I'm just so thankful for our president, who always is thinking 50 steps ahead of everybody. So amen to that. And I hope it's used wisely, and they have great people that are behind this and know what's going on.
Now, yesterday there was a little back and forth between you and Bob was saying, now, what has he actually done? What has he actually delivered?
Exactly.
And so, here we go. It's 10 years. Bob, it's 10 years late, but he did deliver something. So,
I have no problem with that whatsoever. I'm from, for the most part, Eastern Kentucky. By the way, I was born in West Virginia, which also has some really good coal there as well, Tom. Our
coal's better.
Nothing better than Kentucky coal. I'll say that very quickly. Graduated from
ours
Kentucky
burn hotter.
colleges.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I applaud the president. I support the president. I still support the president. I just think that we need to continue to move forward with our eyes wide open. China is not a friend to this nation. They really never have been, unless you want to go all the way back to World War II. They're not a friend.
Well, they were pre-communist then. They were pre-communist.
I agree.
Then, yeah.
You keep your friends close and your enemies closer, though. I think that's what the president has in mind on that.
Yeah.
And we are getting some texts in too, guys.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
First comment that came in: the reason we fall back on the love your neighbor bit is because we were a Christian nation. Jesus is king, not the policies of men. I'll say amen to that.
That's exactly right.
And stand there. We will take the Christian, hold the Judeo. And they go on to say China hasn't been, nor is Israel. So again, making some of their own personal comments. And that's what we want. This is Kentucky's Voice. So
what was their point about Israel? They don't think Israel's our friend?
I believe that's what they're saying.
That's that's a theme right now. Israel bad, whatever.
And it's whether you like it or not, it's making the rounds and gaining a lot of steam. And we talked about, I don't want to get into it because we beat that horse dead yesterday, but a tremendous amount of money by the United States is poured into Israel to where they have basically free health care. We're paying for free college for them. Two things that's not happening in this country, and I'll circle around and I'll beat my drum again. I think the president would do himself a lot of good if he's talked about it several times and hinted towards it. But I would love to see the federal income tax eliminated. If he did something like that, I think that would be amazing, and I think it would be such a shot to the middle class, especially, who is affected just absolutely perversely by federal income taxes. And then one final comment says, another example of Trump having to do it on his own without Congress, talking about the coal situation. So, and then another comment, I guess what we were just, China hasn't been, nor is Israel, which we talked about, but then they said it's a parasitic relationship. The Samson doctrine is not a friendly nation.
I don't know.
Which doctrine? What's that called?
Samson doctrine. It basically says we're going to nuke anybody that tries to kill us. Well, guess what? We have mutual assured destruction in America. So it's the same thing. So I don't know. It's a weird rabbit hole that people want to go down to, on the Israel thing. It's like I said, like you said, Bob. I don't want to talk about too much today. I did want to comment on the first comment that came in. It is interesting that people on the left, especially that push the LGBT agenda and the woke agenda, they wouldn't be able to do that if this wasn't a Christian country, because a lot of the basic assumptions about fairness and treating people with equality and love and respect, those are all Christian, right? If you weren't raised in a Christian worldview, and I'll say it, Mr. Whoever said no Judeo-Christian. It's Judeo-Christian worldview, because Christianity is basically an outgrowth of Judaism, and it's a fulfillment of Judaism in a lot of ways. So it's anyway, whatever. That's a whole other topic.
It is, but I just think we have to put a little more time into that, thinking about that, because our audience is Christian conservative, and I just want to challenge you to look at what Tom was saying, our Judeo-Christian background. I mean, the Ten Commandments are on, government buildings, but I guess I want to go back and I want to say, I think our investment in Israel, I didn't know we're paying for their college and their health care. I thought we were just helping them build their military. But the other thing for me is that they're the only democracy in the entire Middle East. They are our longest and best ally. Of course, we need to always keep our eyes open, but I just don't see the. I think they've used what they've been given well show me another country that's used the money we've given them well.
Well,
And I don't really like, giving it all over the world. I understand
And we know
that.
too that they have brought forth a lot of technologies and that have benefited the world and our country as well. So it's not like everything that Israel cranks out is bad or evil.
right.
I really don't know what they do that's evil except try to survive.
Try to survive.
They're trying to stay as a
that's just it.
country.
I think the whole story of Israel, they just want to live, Just
Right.
like quit killing us, And there's the predatory. They took over all this land. Well, that land was not owned by anybody. It was Turkish. It was British. It was Ottoman. It was Byzantine. It hasn't been a country since Israel was a country 2,000 years ago.
Right.
So it's always just been a territory of some empire. So it's not like there's a country there.
And another comment
Jews
that
have
just
always
came
lived
in
there. So.
to this discussion, and it really is, it does pertain to it. It says Israel is the only country that supports abortion and LGBT more than the USA.
Yeah, well, there we go. They're not perfect. They're not
no,
perfect.
they're
But at the end of the
not.
day, they just want to live. And if Israel dropped all their guns today, they gave up all their weapons and just disbanded the military, they'd be dead. They'd be dead overnight. Now, if all their
would.
neighbors did that, nothing would happen.
Right, but
Bottom
where
line.
all the other countries, they may not approve of homosexuality, but they would kill a Christian in 2 seconds.
Right. Anyway, I don't want to get on
It's
Israel
just
today.
nuts.
It's a
that's why I'm
tangential, strange
glad
topic
God's
that,
in control.
that people want to get into. And it's like, look at all the
Yeah.
foreign aid. Israel's not like we give more foreign aid to the rest of the Middle East than Israel. So
Right.
let's talk about just foreign aid. Anyway, back on data centers. We have 30 seconds left. There's one. They're trying to build one here in Louisville, and so I don't think that's going very well. But anyway, but we do need power, and I think all these data centers ought to be forced to build their own little mini power plant.
Well, I thought that was
next
the
to the data
president's
center.
initiative. I
Yeah.
thought that's what the president said.
That's what needs to happen.
Let's talk about that this next segment.
Yeah,
That's
exactly
All right.
right. Yeah, and maybe Israel has a role in that. No, I'm kidding. We'll be
Or
right back.
Elon Musk.
Or Elon
Let's
Musk.
send
There
it
we
to
go.
space.
Yeah. Or China. Okay, we'll be right back here on Kentucky's
China.
Voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We're talking about a myriad of things because this is Friday, and so we can do that. We want to hear your thoughts. 502-571-0970, 502-571-0970. This is Kentucky's Voice, so we want to hear your voice as well as ours. And so we were talking data centers and power, and there's a clip from Bashir I'm going to tee up here in a second here, Bob. But maybe you can prepare it for me, and so I can...
The governor.
Yeah, if it's the one I sent you, he's talking about data centers and basically saying that he's not saying he's against data centers because, quite frankly, his administration has pushed for them.
Right.
He is saying, which I do agree with this, not much I will agree with.
I've got it ready, by the way.
Is that it would be imperative to set it up to where they foot their own bill, in the process, especially with regard to electricity, because
I can agree
these
with
things use massive amounts.
I can agree with him. Here we go.
Yep.
And for those of you that are at home or in the car, you're not hearing the audio of the governor, but he did do a big press conference talking about we're trying to get some technology issues figured out. But that's the gist of it. He's really saying long overdue.
I could hear that. I don't know if that was. I could hear the clip. I'd have stopped.
Yeah, I don't think our listeners could hear it.
Okay, well that's weird. It was all right. So anyway, so basically he was talking about that. So okay,
Yes.
well, very good. So I can agree with the governor with that. We need to force these data centers to share the burden there, not just pay the rates that are going up for everybody, but actually pay a disproportionate share of the rates because they're the ones causing the rates to go up, or at least create their own power themselves. And so I think that's
I think
why.
that was an initiative of the president. I mean, the president wanted to do that from the very beginning. And then, of course, we can also expect this governor who has aspirations to be the president to be parroting Trump points, and they are true. So, yeah, but don't let that fool you people out there when he goes to run for president, because that's not what he really believes. But yet, absolutely, we don't need to be paying higher electric bills. It's crazy. And I know that it's already happening across the country where they do have other data centers. Right, Bob? You've heard that as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's more than just the cost of the water and the utilities in general, electric, gas, whatever they're using it. But there's also an environmental aspect to that. And I'm sure most people have seen videos of that where these things have gone in and really have wreaked some really heavy duty environmental consequences, besides the noise pollution that happens with it, but actual runoff from that. So it is a serious concern. I think it's something we are moving basically at light warp speed to make this happen. And at the same time, and I understand why, somewhat from the standpoint of staying ahead of our adversaries. We're talking about China being one of our adversaries, and certainly is no friend to our country, staying ahead of them. But at what cost, in the process? And that's what I think we're all concerned about. Want to make certain that all the T's are crossed and the I's dotted, and we're covering all the bases.
Yeah, there's a story on Louisville Public Media about the Louisville Metro Council members are still wary of a data center moratorium. So apparently that's been discussed. Let's just ban data centers from going into the Jefferson County, I guess, or in the metro area.
They want to do that right now?
They're discussing it. They're still wary of doing it. And there's two arguments there. This is economic growth, right? These things bring some jobs, and we're trying to reindustrialize America. So what does that look like? Maybe it looks like a lot of data centers, because the future of industry is going to be AI. So at the same time, like Bob said, nobody wants dirty water. Nobody wants to pay more electricity. So it's a tough one. We've talked about this a lot on the show, and I think it's still worth discussing, because we haven't made the final call on this as a culture or as a community even. And so, and many people are just now catching up with the topic. And like I said, the biggest issue is cooling. I think the processing, electricity just to do the processing isn't a big deal. It's just the cooling of the centers that is the biggest challenge. And
I know. And my thing too, with any of these big decisions, I want to encourage us again as citizens, Kentucky's Voice. If you're an expert out there on any of these things, that we talk about. I just feel like the people that we elect to office, we may love them personally, but I think the one thing, but they need to be experts, or they need to surround themselves with experts. That was a big question for me for, the Senate candidate. And I'm really, we were talking about, I'm jumping off the topic just a little bit, but this week, the cabinet, they've done such a great job of defending themselves in front of our Congress, because the congressional leaders have just asked such foolish questions, and the president really has qualified people in these roles. Like, I'm thinking of Scott Bessent, for example, our treasurer. So those of us out here, this is our country, we the people. If you are an expert in energy, speak up. Call these Metro Council members, give them wisdom, help them understand what they need to know. So the older I'm getting, when I'm retiring, I can't afford my prices to go up for the rest of my life. Like my mom, who's about to turn 90. We can't do that.
I'll read a bit of this article. See, Louisville Metro Council members proposing a moratorium on approving new data centers until the city can pass new regulations. Months after a similar effort was withered, District 15 Democrat Jennifer Chappelle's ordinance would ban the city from approving data center proposals for a period of 6 months, or until Metro Council approves new zoning rules. The proposed legislation could get a hearing on the council's planning and zoning committee as soon as Tuesday. Mayor Greenberg's administration has been working on drafting revised regulations that would cover the relatively new hyperscale data centers, which have drawn concerns from the public and environmental advocacy groups. City planners still haven't published proposed rules, even though they were initially promised in January. Chappelle said she believes a moratorium on new projects is needed to protect against data center developers who might try to take advantage of the city's current lack of real regulations. So, good point. The data center is not like this old. Everybody used to have like a little neighborhood building that was where the phone exchange, like the South Central Bell's phone exchange building right there. You've all seen those. That's what these regulations are written for. A data center is that on steroids, and so it's not. That's really not the right way to regulate that type of facility. So
yeah,
they're
and
right
in this election year, I want to encourage you again, people like Lonnie Joseph and Nancy Lynn Waters and Kat Timmerman, who are running, Republicans that are running, get them elected, because they're going to be common sense people. So if you're in those districts, question them, get out there when they're doing events this summer, talk to them about it, and call the ones that currently represent you in our city, our Metro Council. And boy, I'm glad. I'm just really thankful they're not jumping on this instead of, although it needs to be done.
To your point, Debbie and Bob, and I'll throw this to you. Just like Nixon going to China, you can only trust an ardent anti-communist to go to China and deal with the Chinese. Only a Republican Metro Council member can really, especially from a populist, MAGA-oriented Metro Council member, can really write regulations for something that affects business like this. And because I think in the MAGA world, we get the perfect blend of concern about the working class, and also they want a free market economy,
pro-business,
to flourish, and also an economy in America to flourish, not just around the world. So I think
we just got a comment in from one of our listeners, Tom, that kind of ties in with what you were just saying. It says that's why you create rules before allowing data centers in. Even if we beat China, they later will steal it from us. A lot of truth to that. Yep. Governor Beshear is lying. Just run for president. The final comment there.
That's right. Well said.
Truth.
Well said. So anyway, it's a tough topic. I think we're going to see more data centers, but I think eventually they're going to come up with a better solution, because they need to use space. They need to use. China was talking about using the oceans the other day. Like actually putting them under the ocean and letting the ocean water cool these things down. So,
and Elon wants to put them in space.
Let's put them in space, right? Yeah, I'd say China, go ahead and put it in the oceans underwater, because we control the oceans. U.S. Navy can blow up all your data centers real quick, because Navy submarines will just take those things out. So anyway, we'll be right back. We're going to talk about England here next, Great Britain. They're about to go into a revolution here, and it impacts us because it's tied into a lot of immigration and just demographic politics.
back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We're going to talk a little bit more about data centers because we had a great text that just came in. And so, Bob, you want to read that? I think it's great. So.
The one about you running for
No, not that one. No, not that one. The one that just came in, the data center text. The data center text.
We were having some good chuckles about that, but I do feel, Tom, you'd make a great candidate. That's for sure.
Yes.
But the text we just got in is, why don't they put the data center in that vacant battery building down south? And I think they're talking about the one that's much promised in E-Town that has suddenly disappeared.
Yeah, you know? Andy, the battery plant that you touted and helped make happen and fell apart and gave Ford all this money to do this. And I think they're getting it back finally. I think they've agreed to get Ford's given some of the money back, I believe. I don't know. I need to read that story better, but it's a good point. We've got a lot of empty buildings down there that could be used for something. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, okay. Well, let's shift gears. Let's go back to the mother country. Let's go back to England. If you're from Kentucky, if you're from Kentucky stock here, most of us are Scotch Irish and English in our heritage, and so
my name is Robbins.
I'm a.
But that's my husband's name.
Fallbush. That's the hillbilly version of Forbes. Believe it or not, yeah, which is.
And Scott. I wonder where Scott's from.
Scott. That is definitely Scottish. So so we've got a lot of people from the English Isles here that are represented on the show today, which is appropriate because Kentucky is. I think if you look at our stock, it's mostly that stock there. So England and Britain is going through a real tumultuous time. Politically, culturally, they've had such a huge level of immigration over the past 20 years that it's destabilizing. And their immigration is different than ours, right? Our immigration mostly has been from Latin America, which is a different culture, but at least it's a Christian culture. And so we're fortunate in the sense that a lot of our immigrants at least have a Catholic, or a lot of them are evangelical Christians now. So they're very conservative. They have just a general worldview that kind of lines up with ours. A lot of hardworking folks, and they don't necessarily. I mean, they have some sort of I don't know. Let me say this: like a lot of Mexicans have a resentment towards America because they still are offended by the Mexican-American War, and they believe the propaganda that their government puts out that it was an unfair war. We can get into that some other time. So a lot of Mexicans think that it's Reconquista. This is our land. It's stolen anyway, and So there's a little bit of that going on, but it's not as bad as England and Great Britain. They're dealing with Islam. Islam thinks that they should conquer everybody, and they have a natural supremacist mentality. And I'm not talking about all Muslims, but just Muslim ideology at its core is that. It's just where Islam needs to take over the world. It's you're either part of the House of Islam or you're not. And if you're not, it's called you're in the House of War. That means we need to, by Islamic law, we're supposed to wage war on you and subjugate you. And either make you become Muslim, or if you're a Christian or Jew, we'll let you pay a tax and you can be a second-class citizen. But if you're a pagan, we got to kill you. And that's just really what Islam is written. So it's hard to be a real honest Muslim and not really carry that out. So you've got a lot of cultural tension in England, and and the way the British elite have handled this is they have just really adopted multiculturalism, DEI, and sort of this. Let's celebrate immigration and give all these special privileges to the immigrants and the people that have really paid the price are native English people, and they're starting to feel this, and they call it a two-tier system over there, a two-tier political system. They feel like if you're an immigrant or someone not born in that country, legal or not, you get a special privilege and judicial and the criminal justice system and the political system, and it all played itself out very well here recently. There was a young man, I forgot his name, Bob. What is it? Henry Novak or something? Henry something?
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, he was a young 18-year-old English man walking down the street. Not sure what the altercation was, but somehow he got into an altercation with a Sikh young man who was 22. And this, if you know anything about Sikhs, Sikh is a religion, but also an ethnic group in India. So he's from India originally. He's 22 years old. Sikhs, part of the religion is they have this knife that they hang around them, and it's like they're not supposed to ever take
That
that
normally
off.
would be outlawed for any
Exactly.
other person in Britain.
A native English person
Goodness.
is not allowed to carry a knife, but they give Sikhs a special exemption from that because that's the religion, and they're an ethnic group that's unique, and so we got to baby them and pamper them. So he had this knife, gets into an altercation, stabs this young man several times. Then they call the police. The police show up, and they say, well, this young man was being racist towards us, and he is...
Well, more video has come out, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Was the two Sikhs, two brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They quickly came up with a story
Yeah.
that they called the police and said that we were attacked because of our race. It was a racial attack that happened. The video clearly shows that that's not what happened at all. The young man was just walking and kept on going, and they came and brutally stabbed him and killed him, and that's why, and they should be.
And
the British are so outraged about this.
But while he was still
let's
alive,
mention the punchline about this. So
what?
the police show up. The police show up and they say this. Here's this guy. He was being racist and attacked us. He's on the ground and he's suffering, and they didn't know he's bleeding.
Well, he's bleeding out.
Well,
yeah.
Apparently they didn't know that. So he said, "I'm bleeding. I was been stabbed." And then the police goes, "No, you haven't, mate. You haven't been stabbed." And so while he's saying that and saying, "I can't breathe and I've been stabbed," he grabs his arms and starts handcuffing him behind his back. While this guy is dying and saying, I can't breathe, I've been stabbed. And so the British public is blown up at this and said, this is ridiculous. This is, you assume that because they claim that this kid was being racist, that he's immediately the bad guy. And so they've trained the psyche of the English people to think that, white is bad. White native English is bad. They're going to be there's this inherent racism. So whenever there's an altercation like this, you assume the white native English person is at fault. And the police are actually taught that. They're actually indoctrinated to be DEI police, and they enforce it. And this played out to where this young man died at the custody of the police. So the English are rioting right now. They are rioting over this because they're fed up with this. They want remigration. They want to take all these migrants that have come in. They want them to leave. And so you've got parties like Reform and some other even more conservative parties that are getting a lot of traction. They're probably going to take over the English. It's going to be a revolution in England, either politically or otherwise.
Well, I hope
soon.
so.
Yeah.
But it's also happening here. There's the case going on in Texas right now. But it's a racial issue, unfortunately. It's so sad.
Yeah.
That you remember the kids last year, they were at the track meet. And the case is, it's in court right now.
Politically charged,
a
racially
black kid,
charged.
and I hate to say black or white, but a black kid that he attacked a white kid who wasn't armed. He stabbed him also.
That's right.
And so hopefully the jury will see the truth and convict the young man. And because it's not a black or white issue, it's an evil issue.
In fact, we've got a great comment that came in from one of our listeners. They said that there is a two-tier justice system in Great Britain, which we were just talking about.
Right.
One for foreigners, one for native born. No freedom of speech there. That's why we rebelled, and Britain is on the verge of civil war. Thank God there was a video where the victim would be the perpetrator, and they go on to say, and they're right, 100% right on this. Justice is supposed to be blind to race. Amen.
It just should be, justice should be blind. You're innocent until proven guilty, but facts are facts. And thank God, this is one time I do thank the Lord for video and for phones and things like that. But
even though the left would try to say something, your lying eyes, don't believe your lying eyes, and what you're seeing by video. And that's constantly happening in our world today. There'll be video proof out, and the left will still say, no. Don't believe what your eyes are showing you.
I've got about a 2-minute clip of the actual incident I'm going to play, and if hopefully you can hear this. And,
it's disturbing.
And see it, and if you're on radio, we'll try to narrate it if it's not real clear. So, Mr. Producer, I'm playing it now.
Here we go.
This is Vikram Digwa, the killer, on the night he stabbed Henry Novak multiple times. Police released this body cam footage. 4 other people can be seen while Henry is on the floor.
He keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying to keep him set up. He's got a mouthful of blood, I don't want him...
A discussion takes place between police and bystanders before police ask Henry...
What's your name, mate?
Henry attempts to respond. Then the police officer says...
Has anyone been hurt other than him?
At this point, Digwa steps in, saying he's the victim.
He took my turban off, so I grabbed on my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruise.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me.
This is the first time we can clearly hear Henry say he's been stabbed in the footage, 49 seconds in. Then we see blue lights flashing as more responders arrive.
Right, let's get you out of there, shall we?
Police pull him along the ground.
Grab his other arm. What's happened to you, right?
This is the 4th time in the footage we hear Henry say he's been stabbed, 1 minute, 11 seconds after it begins.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? I don't think you have, mate.
We've muted the audio here because it's distressing. Henry groans as police pull his hands behind his back and handcuff him. In this section of the video, Henry repeatedly says he can't breathe.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so let's just check him.
1 minute, 48 seconds in, a police officer lifts up the side of Henry's top, but goes no further. Then we can hear someone say he hasn't been stabbed.
In the face? Oh no, but we have to check, don't we?
Right.
In the face?
Then, with police surrounding him, Henry says, "Please, brother, I can't breathe." In total, we've clearly heard Henry say he can't breathe 7 times. Police officers say Henry is under arrest and read him his rights. 2 minutes, 48 seconds after the footage begins, police call for an ambulance.
So it makes you think of what in America, that where the phrase "I can't breathe" was mentioned.
George Floyd.
George Floyd. All right. And so this is their George Floyd moment, but it's for native British people. And so basically you have a police system and a political system that's there to suppress native English rights. The indigenous people, right? The indigenous people that the left want to celebrate all the time are the native white British, and they are getting their rights trampled by these immigrant colonizers who the government gets behind. Right, and so if you're a leftist, your ideology should support the English people that are undergoing this garbage.
That's why Judeo-Christian values rule the day, and they should continue to rule the day.
That's right, exactly right. And so, and they need to remigrate out of there. We'll be right back. Want to hear your thoughts on this.
to Kentucky's Voice Radio online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, and we're talking about the mother country, Great Britain, UK, whatever you want to call it, England, Scotland, whatever. They have so many terms for it over there. But there's a real tragic moment there with that young man dying. And if you've watched our previous segment, we played the video of the police cam video of that young man who was stabbed by this Sikh immigrant who claimed that he was being attacked under a racial attack. The police assumed that, right? Assumed that it was true, and didn't render aid quickly or at all to this young English, white, young English 18-year-old boy, young man, and let him die right there in police custody. Actually, she says, "I'm stabbed. I've been stabbed 4 or 5 times." Says that, and I can't breathe. Right. And they still handcuff him anyway. Roll him on his stomach.
7 times, actually.
It's crazy.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
Bob, are there comments, Bob?
Yeah, lots of comments here that have come in.
Yeah.
I could read one. Yeah, the two-tier justice system in Great Britain, one for foreigners and one for native-born. No freedom of speech there. That's what we rebelled. That's why we rebelled. Britain's on the verge of a civil war. I totally agree with that. And then he says, "Thank God there's a video of the victim, or the victim would be. Thank God there's a video, or the victim would be the perpetrator." Justice is supposed to be blind to race, and the police who did not even examine the victim for wounds should be charged with manslaughter. So great comments there.
Yeah, and another one said, going back talking the George Floyd discussion. George Floyd was 2 times the size of the officer and on drugs. Not equal weights and measures.
That's right. Yeah, and you could say that police officer that's still rotting in jail right now is a victim of it's a political persecution in some ways. He was just a sacrificial lamb to wokeness, because I don't think he should be in jail necessarily. He may have done something wrong in the process, but I don't, whatever. That's all. I don't want to.
I know we don't want to open that can of worms, because it's very emotional. But yet, I tend to agree with you. I think
a pardon's due.
I just think the bottom line is the Tower of Babel in the Bible happened for a reason. God, he didn't want us thinking ever that any of us are above him. And he divided us racially. And sadly, some people chose to follow him and some didn't. And the cultures that do not mix with us. And
Debbie, I think that's the heart of the problem, not just in Great Britain, but obviously here in this country, is both systems, both countries have, for the most part, pushed God aside, and are really worshiping Baal in the process, the devil, by allowing everything immoral to come in and believing a lie instead of going after the truth. So, yeah, you made a very good point that right now we are in a battle for our I believe our souls, our souls as far as our nation is concerned, by allowing ourselves to be sucked down these different rabbit holes, and instead of just standing up for the basic truth. And there is no better truth, we all know, as believers in Christ than Jesus Christ, because he said, "I am the way, the truth, the life. No man comes to the Father but through me."
Amen to that. And again, and that's why, I blab so much to say that we need to vet people that are running for office. The guy sitting over here next to me would be a fantastic candidate. He really would. But no, but seriously, I'm telling you. Now listen, we have to vet candidates. I'm serious. We have to vet them thoroughly. Daniel Cameron's cannot be pushed to the side. Okay. And I want to say that again. And I want to say to our pastors out there, and I know a lot of them, I've sung literally for thousands of churches, and especially for the military all over the world, chaplains of every denomination. Stand up for the word of God. Preach the word. Preach it. Yeah. And, and I saw too about the Johnson Amendment, that about where people are afraid, of the separation of church and state. And I think we have a congressman, national, I forgot his name right now, that I'm bringing up another topic, to get rid of the Johnson Amendment altogether so that pastors can speak from the pulpit. And then you're going to really know where they stand. You're going to really know who is preaching the word and who is not.
No, I agree. I just don't know if there's some pastors that really want people to know what they really believe.
I know.
In the process. But yeah, I think the Johnson Amendment for the most part Trump did do an executive order which
Yes.
set it aside, but
It's
yeah,
dead.
it needs to be codified. And
Yes.
and again, that's what made our nation great, was allowing true believers, true men of God, to stand up and speak the truth. While the lies, and of course, obviously, that time, the Great Britain was putting on our country. We need that.
And plus, that should go to the Supreme Court. Yeah, that should
Well-
just go to the Supreme Court and get overruled. But let's go back to England for a second. So
Yes.
here's the problem. Multiculturalism has failed, right? Multiculturalism has failed. And back to your point, and Bob, both of your all's points, you need first of all, you need a Judeo-Christian, you need a Christian worldview for countries to successfully flourish, right?
Oil and water do not mix.
Even non-Christian countries that have adopted at least a lot of our ethos, a lot of our ideas, they flourish. Like Japan flourishes. Well, why do they flourish? Because they adopted Western ideas. Where do those Western ideas come from? From the Judeo-Christian worldview,
And from the Bible.
And so
just come from the
multiculturalism
original.
doesn't work because of this, right? It comes from the word culture, right? Well, what does culture come from? It comes from the word cult. What is cult? It's a religion, right? So you can't have a society with multiple, basically worldviews that differ from one another, because then you just can't get along. And then you basically you basically break down, right? And so so the multiculturalists think that there's this global utopian culture that we can all adapt it to, but what happens if a culture comes along that is counter to that culture, right? And so it says that no, I don't believe in multiculturalism. I believe in Islam is dominant. Islam is the primary culture, and everything else is inferior. But yet your multicultural culture and idea says that all cultures are equal. Well, so you see that oil and water doesn't mix, and so at the end of the day, you've got to have a predominance in a society of looking at things the same way, so that you can, at least on the fundamental issues, like what is a man, what is a woman, what is murder, what's a lie, what's truth, is there a God, is there not a God? Do our rights come from God? Do our rights come from government? These are some basic, fundamental things that we have to get agreement on. And,
it's called the Ten Commandments.
Or else we
it's
can't have a
called the
country.
Ten Commandments,
Right.
where every biblical moral principle has stemmed from the Ten Commandments.
That's right.
And then, of course, the teachings of Jesus. But where I get frustrated, Tom, and I get frustrated, Bob, is when I see just people get squeamish, or they'll say, oh, blessed are the peacemakers, or do not judge, lest you be judged. Those scriptures get taken out of context so terribly. If you go back and you look at the origins of the words, and it's judgment, you must have good judgment. Just because you've got to call out sin. You've got to call it out. You
No, but
can't
Debbie,
say,
you're
well,
a
I
hater.
can't judge.
You're a hater.
Yeah, I
So,
know, but
there we go.
and
Bob
I know
for being
it's
a hater.
terrible.
You are a hater just for judging.
Right.
So anyway. So Bob, what do you think is going to happen with England? What do you think is going to happen here?
Right.
Because there's serious talk, even amongst academics that study this, that England's on a track for civil war, and
it's
there's phases
teetering
of it
right now. Yeah, it's teetering. I get the pushback. It's honestly something that should have happened a while back. I don't know. I mean, I wish I had the answer to that question. I guess circling around it, everything comes down to the fact they needed to put God and the God of Jesus, back into their system, and it hasn't been there for a very long time. So. I don't know. We as Christians need to be praying for them, and while simultaneously keeping an eye on what's happening in our own country right now, even as we speak.
Yeah. The beauty of America is we have a system that can adapt and change a little bit easier than European systems. The English parliamentary system, the way they pick candidates, and the way. Just the way just Europe in general is very state heavy, because it comes from, they're very old school in the sense that they think all power emanates from the sovereign or the state.
Right.
And so that's in their psyche in a lot of ways. And so they really don't feel like they have the freedom that Americans do, just in a heart of hearts issue. If you ever go to like Germany, for example, like my brother lived there for a while. My mother was over there visiting, and she had some old pasta that she was going to throw out the back door into the backyard just to feed the birds. And my brother goes, no, don't do that. The Germans, they got laws about that. And it's like, what? This is just possible. they're very concerned about what the government thinks, and it's all about rights. That's why they don't have guns. They don't give you any rights to own guns, and it's just a different world. So the way they kind of respond to these sort of problems like this, they take it politically so far, but since there's such an elite there that kind of controls the political system, the next step is just revolution. That's why you see a lot of European countries just devolve to revolution.
And one of our listeners, right on with that theme, says a civil war without guns is difficult. That's why they're working so hard. And I'm talking about the far left.
But the Irish figured it out. I tell you what, Northern Ireland, they figured it out. And that's probably what England was going to look like in the next 20 years. If we don't get this straight, it's going to look like the Troubles in Northern Ireland.
And I want to throw in here too, guys. Last night, the Senate was up all night long. And guess what? They rejected the Save America Act.
Okay, 2 minutes. We're going to go to that.
I know.
One.
I'm sorry. I've got to do it.
We got 2 minutes left.
I've got to do it because
let's go.
Because you were talking about Americans and our quote freedom. We're not free until we take. We've got to get control of our elections again. Election integrity. We have to do it, people. Local, state, national. And when Senator Mitch McConnell, he voted against that last night. How dare him? And call his office today. Everybody, email him. Unfortunately, we're not going to get heard because he's on his way out the door. But I am outraged by that.
He doesn't care. He honestly does not care. I'm not sure if he knows which way it's up or down right now.
True.
And it was the usual suspects. You had Murkowski from Alaska, Susan Collins from Maine, that were a part of that. I'm trying to remember who the fourth one was, but it's...
Oh, is it Tillis? Tillis, Murkowski, Collins,
Tillis,
and McConnell.
Who is also on his way out the door from North Carolina. So go figure.
At the end of the day, listen, as soon as the Democrats get in power next time, they're going to get rid of the filibuster. They're going to bring in Puerto Rico. It's going to be nothing's going to stop them from trying to dominate us. And so the fact that we're playing these little, games like, well, we can't overthrow the filibuster now because, the Democrats they're going to do it anyway. All right. They're already out of their heads. And all they care about is power. They don't believe in the system anymore. They just want control over your life. So if we don't get real and start learning how to fight this, and
we got to get a hold of our own country. Yeah. Right now, starting local.
Yeah.
Local, Tom.
Yeah.
Run for office, Tom.
We can do more for all the candidates here on this show. This is our political mission, is to bring news to the viewers and influence every campaign. So we want the politician to care about what we think on this show, all of us, and because we represent you. And so, very good. Anyway, that's a great way to end this show.